Well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Alice. Was there anything else you'd like to say before I go to Jerry?
We have two writers in the book who aren't with us today, Phyllis Holliday and Adele Kearney, and we're very pleased that we could include them in the book.
Thanks, Alice. Now I'd like to introduce you to Jerry Path, who will say a few words and get the reading started. So over to Jerry.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the 28th annual Labor Fest. Labor Fest started commemorating the general strike that took place in San Francisco 87 years ago. The dates commemorating this have passed now, and as well as the dates for other labor struggles and issues. But there's still a few left. The calendars, and we haven't gotten through July yet, so there's still events that you can take in, including the Living Wage Awards Dinner on July 30th and the Maritime History Boat Tour on July 31st. So now turning to our event this afternoon, this is our 15th annual Labor Fest Writers event. Our group began at a writing workshop initiated by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz, who many of you may recognize as the author of important books such as An Indigenous People's History of the United States. After getting us started, Roxanne left us to develop our talents on our own. We have usually tried to meet every 2 weeks, undergoing various changes, new people joining, others leaving, two sadly dying. This is our second meeting on Zoom. This is and I'm going to give you a brief overview of our agenda for this afternoon. Margaret Cooley will lead us off, followed by Alice Rogoff, and then Keith Cooley. There will then be a musical interlude, and the final two writers or readers will, the writers will read, and that's Nellie Wong and myself. After this, we'll have time for comments and questions, and that'll be moderated by Alice. I'm going to introduce Margaret Cooley, who will read her piece.
Hello, welcome. Glad to see everybody. Thank you for attending today. I'm going to start us off, and Keith needs to mute the new people joining. So I'm doing a personal essay. I often do personal essays, and it's about what's been going on in my family for the last year, which is very much a labor story, and very much showing, as you'll see, the problems going on for workers in our country. And this story is in particular about my sister. The boss resumed his bullying 3 weeks after the death of our mother. He'd been harassing my sister Jean throughout the pandemic. She'd been sheltering at home, and he wanted Jean back in the office. She was his most loyal employee. She'd often stay late, never put in for overtime, and didn't say no to her boss. For a few weeks in 2020, everyone was required to shelter at home, and the workers in Jean's company continued to be paid. But as the weeks dragged on, the boss said workers needed to be working at home to keep their jobs. Jean's boss and all the rest of the office workers didn't return to the office. They'd taken their computers home to work, but Jean's boss continued to intimidate her, suggesting she would not get paid unless she went back into the office. And by then, people were dying from COVID, and the terror of dying was stronger than her concern over her job. So Jean kept asking for work to do at home. And for a few weeks, she got it. It was what she needed and what our family needed, because our 92-year-old parents lived at home and needed help. Our dad was trying to recover from a stroke. He was frail, confused, and needed help with daily tasks like dressing and bathing. Our mom did everything else at home. She drove, shopped, and cooked daily. She kept track of the doctor's appointments, medications, schedules, paid all the bills. But in April, she also had a stroke, and she wasn't recovering. Jean, after her work hours, immediately took over all my mother's tasks to help out our parents. Jean's boss was aware of our family issues. Nevertheless, in June, when companies began to slowly open back up, he decided no more work at home for Jean. Jean asked him, "Couldn't you assign my job to someone else and give me the work to do at home instead, since I'm caring for 2 sick parents? I can't risk getting COVID or giving it to them." Jean had prepared to have this conversation with her boss. She consulted her employee handbook about family leave, contacted lawyers about discrimination, and found a better balance, an advocacy group with a mission to balance work, health, and family. In particular, they help employees get family leave and get time off work without losing their jobs. She called A Better Balance and found a sympathetic group who wanted to hear her story. She told them what was going on and determined, while things might change in the future, for her now, her only option was unpaid family leave. "There's no more work to be done at home for you, Jean," her boss told her. She was ready with her response. "I guess I have to take my family leave then," she replied. They both knew her family leave was unpaid leave. Jean was low income. The boss thought she was bluffing. "I guess you're eligible for 12 weeks of unpaid leave if you want it," he said, never thinking she'd take it. At that point, it was evident our mother was dying and Jean wanted to be with her. She made her decision. "I'll take the family leave," she told the boss. 6 weeks later, our mother was dead, and it caused more disorientation with our dad. Every day, Dad asked Jean questions like, "Where's your mother? When will she be home? Is she in the hospital? Did she die?" And he didn't ask these questions once. He asked them many times a day, every day. He relied on daily contact with Jean. It was good she was sheltering at home and could be with Dad without risk of COVID. 2 weeks before the end of her unpaid family leave, Jean heard from her boss saying, "Send congratulations to Nancy in her retirement." Nancy was the person doing Jean's job while she was on leave. Jean called Nancy to get the details and found out that the boss was downsizing the company. Knowing that Jean's leave was about to end, he'd let Nancy go and gave her a retirement package. Now Jean, as the head receptionist, was expected back in the office, regardless of her bereavement from my mother or the pandemic. Jean was just months away from turning 65 and had several health risk factors herself. So she consulted her physician to see if it was safe to return to work. Her doctor told her there was no way she could go back into the office until after vaccinations were created and distributed to the public. Jean asked her doctor for a letter so that when the boss contacted her, she'd be ready with it and perhaps he'd reconsider letting her work at home. Jean sent an email to her boss. "My family leave is ending soon and my doctor has advised a work at home platform for me. She doesn't want me to return to the office. Please call me to discuss work at home options." She immediately got a reply from her boss. Jean I had no idea that you had health issues keeping you from working. She told him, the issue is the coronavirus. My doctor wants me to stay at home until the virus subsides. The boss, who was still working at home himself, tried another tactic. But Jean, there's no work for you to do at home. There's work for you in the office. So that means you don't qualify for unemployment. And when your family leave ends, you'll lose your health insurance. He knew how important her health insurance was to her and thought for sure she'd go back to the office. Jean was 5 months away from receiving Medicare. She did the math and could just afford it. She replied, so this is how you treat a loyal employee of 20 years. Send me the paperwork for COBRA. Fast forward 10 months. Jean is off COBRA and on Medicare now, still caring for our dad and still off work with no pay while her boss continues to work from home. There's a message on her voicemail. Hi, Jean. This is Marcella from A Better Balance. You called our helpline last year about your family leave rights. I'm calling to let you know we now have an opportunity to meet with Congress at a hearing that's going to address paid leave. It's time to take action for strong paid family and medical leave. We have the opportunity to share stories with Congress, and we'd like to share your story because it illustrates what a difference it would make if workers had leave that is paid and not unpaid. The House Committee on Ways and Means is holding hearings to consider changing all family leave from unpaid leave to paid leave. A Better Balance gave testimony and told my sister Jean's story. Because Jean's story, along with the stories of others, makes it clear that this economy is failing its workers, and it has failed women most. While many men may be professional caregivers, the unpaid caregivers in our families are in the majority women. And the children and elders at home sheltering in place with caregivers like Jean, who are doing the unpaid work, are not getting help from their employers or the government. The good fight continues. When we reach out and share our stories, we find the help we need and make the changes we need to make this world a better place for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Feel free to unmute to show your appreciation for Margaret.
Oh, thank you. Just to let you know, there was somebody unmuted.
I
Just a
know,
little
I
technical
know.
glitch.
It was some elusive person that I had.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so I am just going to finish up by introducing our next writer who will be reading some poetry for us. Please welcome Alice Rogoff. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be reading from a series called Voices on Voting, related to voting rights. And some of it's history and some of it's fiction. And the first one I'm going to read is 1908, From a Waitress, Women's Waitress Union. We waitresses are thinking about more than our dishes, corned beef and cabbage and potatoes. Now that there's a vote for women in California, we want an amendment to the Constitution. Maud Younger is in the Waitress Union, and I'm in the Women's Trade Union League. I've heard of Louise LaRue, who started the Wage Earners Suffrage League in San Francisco. Another woman, Minna O'Donnell, is asking for labor support for suffrage, to make factories safer, to clean them up, and shorten hours. Minna shouts at demonstrations, then she goes to lobby. Maud became a delegate to the Central Trades Labor Council. We waitresses can do more than serve you up a good meal. My next piece begins. I was born on July 4th, 1763. I left England at age 13 and became an indentured servant to a Dutch family in Manhattan. I worked off my passage in 7 years. My family had 2 slaves from Africa. We worked in the kitchen together. I had no love for the King of England, and now I thought, soon we will all be free with this new country. But Mary and Adam were still slaves, and the first vote was not for women. It wasn't my design for a new country. I would have women as planners in this United States, and I knew other old world nations did not keep people in bondage. I went north and I met a native who had their own nation, a nation that was already in the Americas. My Dutch family went to Suriname, finding another colony. I didn't have much schooling. A girl like me didn't, but I learned to read. If I were a man to vote, I would still have had to have land or money. I thought year by year, this would change. Adam and Mary were sold to another family, finally in New York, becoming free and living in Harlem. I died at 100, living much longer than anyone would have thought to 1863. Adam and Mary's grand and great grandchildren had been sent to the South, were finally freed. And now, as my new life as a ghost, I see how many years it has taken for them and many of us to get the vote. And in 2021, the Navajo don't have enough post office to mail in votes in a country that finally allowed them to vote as well. Women's Rights Day. 2 suffragettes, Etta and Louisa. Etta gave speeches to assemblies. Louisa led parades on Fifth Avenue. Each received a letter thanking them for their contributions from a national organizer. The treasured letters mingle in my home closet with a photo of Etta Gardner, my husband's great-grandmother, and Louisa, my great-aunt. Etta wears a long black dress with a shawl and a cross around her neck, dark auburn hair. She gazes out with blue eyes. Her 2 daughters sit beside her, blonde with strong chins. Etta was a church deacon and led the ladies group to win the vote. She wrote 19th century engraved books with flowers and birds and airy spirits. So slender and ethereal as a young woman, her bulk protrudes proud as an aging woman. She walked through the snowy streets of a small town in Wisconsin, lived in a yellow wood house. Louisa Hirsch, my great-aunt, was a teacher who traveled the world, viewed with hazel eyes, bringing back Jerusalem's pressed flowers and a turquoise kimono from Japan, embroidered with a gold peacock. Her big family of sisters and brothers was Jewish. She never married, but had an admirer who wrote her love letters from Berlin before World War II. She shared an apartment in the Bronx with a bachelor brother and taught piano to school children. She was one of the suffragettes from New York City. Etta is buried on a rolly hill. One can smell cow manure and fertilizer from the nearby dairy farms. Louisa rests in the Jewish Hungarian cemetery in Queens. Cars roll by on the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges to arrive there. Today is Women's Rights Day. I look at the letters and photos and see 2 suffragettes marching together. Freedom Summer. I went to register African Americans to vote. I was killed that summer, hidden for years. Nazis now talk about freedom to carry guns. Little sister, still has a Freedom Now banner in her closet. If you are old enough to go to war, you are old enough to vote, was said during the Vietnam War. So 18-year-olds got to vote. I was already 21, but still had not voted. I lived in my college town, hometown, went out of school. At 22, saw a voter registrar on Castro Street in San Francisco. Saw Harvey Mill campaign on 24th Street. A supervisor candidate put flyers at my building in the Mission. Now I realized more than presidential elections, mayor, supervisor, propositions on almost everything. Then when I was out of the US, I forgot I could still vote. And then living in a small town in Maine, I did vote on a handwritten ballot dropped in a box. The last presidential election, there were more young voters than before. And I am reminded of, if you are old enough to fight, you are old enough to vote, and many ways to fight. Uptown Country, 1970. Inside door number 12, a little hammock swings back and forth. The long cords tied to the close walls of the tiny apartment in uptown Chicago. Outside, a screaming siren, a baby swinging so rhythmically. The mother opens the door as I go door to door, passing out Model Cities literature for independent candidates. The striped hammock travels across one continent or two. A buffalo paws, the baby sleeps, the door closes. 12 doors of the uptown apartment building open for a glance. No one says, won't talk, don't bother me, not today. On small and large islands, warm weather, the winds blow across the sound. Hear the voices of vendors calling for pineapples. Waking up in the morning, and also hurricanes come sweeping through. Helicopters waking up, propellers, wind blows election away. One capture, leader gone, soldiers running through the halls of government. Haiti, Chile, turnover happens over and over. A drawing of Neruda sits on my desk. And my last poem is Searching for Dolphins. I am looking for more than dolphins, maybe a new hat or a prize in a poetry contest, a day without bills, a supervisor I like who votes to keep seniors in their homes. Those waves could be dolphins, their noses above water, giving glimpses of life on the coast, still swimming by, I think, or hope. Those dark moons could be dolphins.
Thank you, Alice. Please unmute if you'd like to sound off your appreciation.
Yay! Thank you. Our next reader is going to be Keith Cooley.
Thanks. And this is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The television was on. Since the shelter in place began, it's on most of the day in my apartment. This particular day, July 22nd, 2020, Trump was holding a press conference live on television. Trump said, As you know, the China virus poses a significant danger to our seniors, but less than 1% of the population are responsible for half the deaths from this plague. It was the height of the second wave of COVID-19 pandemic. How the virus was transmitted was still not clear. So many scraps of misinformation were circulating, spreading fear and delusion about the virus. So much uncertainty. Trump continued, there are many reasons for the spike in cases. Cases started to rise after the demonstrations. He was referring to the demonstrations in support of Black Lives Matter. This was going on as I left the apartment. I had been called out to deal with issues at the building on Turk in the TL, that is the Tenderloin. I was going to the building by car. At this time, Muni appeared unsafe and unsanitary. The stations on Market Street were boarded up with plywood. But that was not the reason I was called out. The building was formerly owned by the founder of the Naan and Curry chain of Indian restaurants. He may have been a good entrepreneur, but by all accounts, he had been a lousy landlord. He had neglected maintenance and ignored repair requests from tenants. Many complaints were made to DBI, the Department of Building Inspection, and the lack of response resulted in violations beginning to mount up. First, the city brokered a sale to a private investor who soon gave up and then asked the land trust to buy the building. We walked north along Leavenworth before it meets Turk. The sidewalk was crowded, multicolored tents in clumps, a woman sitting on a chair talking to herself, people hustling and struggling to survive. Beatrice was with me because I needed a translator. The majority of the households living in the building were native Spanish or Mayan speakers. Many were related in some way, cousins or from the same village. They preferred to speak in their own tongue. Trump had ranted about cases surging in Mexico. He had said, 250 miles of newly constructed wall across our southern border has had a great positive impact on preventing people coming in. And there are record low numbers of people coming in illegally. There had been rumors of infections amongst the tenants. It would surprise me if this had not occurred. Tenants lived in such close quarters in this building. There were 20 residential units, all studios, many of them the size of your living room. Imagine a family of 5 in your living room, eating, living, sleeping. But that was not the reason why I was called out. There was a mystery. The building manager, Jose, who lived on the premises, was nowhere to be found. He had not been seen for a week. He was not answering his phone or responding to texts. Requests for repairs were piling up. He had disappeared. A neighbor in the building, Hannah, had several times knocked on the door to his apartment. There was no answer. We had checked the video from the security cameras. The last sighting was a week ago in the hallway. He had vanished. In front of the building on Turk is a bus stop. where you can catch the number 31 bus that will whisk you out of the TL, away out to the west, to the Richmond district, the Sunset, and to the Pacific Ocean. But now bus service had been suspended. By the barred metal gate to the building, a sad-looking black man in a wheelchair was parked. I nodded to him. Silently, he lifted his hand to wave. On the corner with Leavenworth, a group of 4 men were gesticulating. Something was being exchanged. A transaction was taking place. Show me what I'm getting. I got the cash. It was wise not to stare or interfere. I pulled the heavy gate open for myself and Beatrice. We went up a few studded metal steps and opened the inner door. Ahead was a long, narrow corridor with numbered doors on the right and left. We walked past the mailboxes, the fire alarm. On the left was Leah's home, a studio for herself and her 2 kids. Down the hall, a door opened. The head of a middle-aged white man looked out in my direction. It was Donald Nipper. His head darted back and the door abruptly closed. Donald was 16 months behind on his rent, but he was not alone with rent arrears. This month, 9 of the 20 households in the building were behind on their rent. We reached the back atrium. In the corner was a discarded wooden box and a child's cycle. Then through a narrow hallway, down a few steps to the back patio, open to the air. The neighboring building towered above. To the left was a blue-colored tent. To the right, a wooden picnic table and the green, blue, and black garbage bins. I went up to the tent. Hello, is anyone there? Beatrice repeated this in Spanish. From inside the tent, a voice called out in English with the accent of a California teenager. Who is this? The zipper came down on the door of the tent. A dark-haired teenager poked his head out. Oh, it's you. He recognized me. I had talked to him before. I knew he went to Washington High School, the school with the murals on the hill in the outer Richmond with a view of Golden Gate Bridge. He wanted to be an architect. He said, my parents have the coronavirus. Juan and I are staying in the tent, so we don't get it from them. Their parents worked for a restaurant over in North Beach in the kitchen, now probably closed down by the lockdown order. The family name was Arguella, and they were related to a couple of other households elsewhere in the building. I asked him, have you seen Jose in the last couple of days? The reply was, no. I know my mom was trying to reach him because our stove is not working properly. He promised to fix it a month ago. There were 2 floors on the building. The building manager's apartment was on the 2nd floor. We made our way to the stairs. We encountered Carla on the stairs. They had bleached blonde hair gathered with a band. When it came time for their annual income certification, they had produced a statement that they work for tips as a drag performer at Aunt Charlie's, the historic LGBTQ bar in the next block of Turk. They had recently written a letter of complaint about Jose, accusing him of pressuring them to have sex with him. We were not sure how to respond. On the stairs, they turned their head away and ignored us. On the second floor, we found Delmar, a diminutive Latino man. His voice was high-pitched and piercing. Hey, Kenneth, you know that woman next door? She's dirty. I'm not going to pay my rent until you do something about her. I need the window down the hall open because the smell coming out of her place. Jose should be making sure she does not close it. She is so dirty. I asked, have you seen Jose in the last couple of days? Delmar shook his head and closed his door. Hannah was out in the hall with her nervous service dog, Sophie. She was putting out cardboard boxes. I had a long and testy relationship with Hannah ever since she moved in after a year of living in a homeless shelter. She had influential friends that helped her get a unit in the building, despite her difficult and irascible personality. She saw us and came over. Do you know the little man next door keeps opening the window down the hall? I said, yes, we have an agreement that the window is open during the day, but closed by Jose for the night. She said, it must be kept closed. It is unhealthy. The draft comes through the door into my apartment. Jose is not doing his job. The story I heard was that she was evicted a couple of years ago from a 2-bedroom house in Bernal. Now she was cramming 4 rooms of furniture into a studio. And every week, more books were being brought in. When her fridge stopped working, it was found there was no path through her unit. Stuff was piled up 2 or 3 feet high, boxes teetering, books and old electronic amplifiers. I left Hannah still fulminating about the open window. I knocked on Jose's door. No reply. I had a set of keys with me. I unlocked the door and went inside. There was an unpleasant smell. It was the smell of a dead animal. On the bed lay the body of Jose with a knife sticking out of his chest, a vivid stain of blood on the white bedclothes, a frozen expression of surprise on his face. I called the Tenderloin police. Perhaps this will get their attention finally. Thank you. Please feel free to unmute to show your appreciation. Thank you, everyone. And I want to let you know that we're going to have a 5-minute break, just if you need to take care of any biological functions. And then we'll be followed by a musical break from Margaret, Melody, Dennis, and Mary. Thank you, everyone. See you in a little while.
And then Nellie and Jerry, yeah. The real story was the guy went back to Mexico, but he came to the true death. I said,
I'll sit down and make you a list of all those my favorite Scandinavian. Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're back from the break, and I just want to introduce you to Friends of Labourfest Writers. We're just going to play a couple of songs before we return to poetry and prose from some of the other Labourfest writers. Nellie, the famous poet Nellie Wong, and the writer Jerry Path. So please go ahead with the musical interlude.
Thank you. I just want to again welcome Dennis and Mary and Melody. Melody on vocals and tambourine, Dennis on guitar, Mary on banjo, and me also a little bit of guitar and vocals. And we are part of the Union Bugs, which is a musical folk group basically formed out of the labor chorus for the most part. And we've been playing for years. And I don't know about you guys, but music is getting me through this pandemic as a sane person. And there's so many songs that are so timeless and relate to what's going on in the world and how our families continue to be affected by hard times and how people on the streets are struggling, and singing about these things helps me with hope for the future. So we're just going to do 3 songs now. And if there's time at the end, we can do more if you'd like, but we're flexible. So first song, Will the Circle Be Unbroken in C, an instrumental beginning. I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day when I saw the hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by? There's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Lord, I told the undertaker, please stop, Lord, for this body you are holding. Lord, I hate to see her go. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Oh, I followed close behind her, tried to hold up and be brave, but I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in the grave. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Went back home, my home was lonesome since my mother was gone. All my brothers, sisters crying. What a home so sad and alone. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, oh, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
Oh, yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's for my mama. And here's one for the people on the street and by one of my favorites.
Margaret,
Yes?
is there any way you can turn up the microphone? I can't hear the strings at all. I can only hear your voices.
We're operating from an iPad here, and this is the best we've got. So I'll turn it up all I can, and I will sing quieter. How about that?
Well, I mean, your voice is lovely. I wouldn't want you to do
Sounded
that.
good to
Well,
me.
that's what we'll have to do. Okay.
Sounded good to me.
Okay. Keith? Okay. So the banjo starts us off. I hear mariachi static on my radio, and the tunes they play in the dark. I'm there with you in Ensenada, and I'm here at Echo Park. Carmelita, hold me tighter. I think I'm sinking down, and I'm all strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town. Well, I pawned my Smith Corona, and I went to see my man. He hangs out down on Alvarado Street at the Pioneer Chicken Stand. Carmelita, hold me tighter. I think I'm sinking down, and I'm all strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town.
on the outskirts of town. Carmelita holds me tight up. I think I'm going down. And I'm all strung out on heroin on the outskirts of town.
Thank you. We'll just do one last one now, and if there's time later, we can do more if you like, or not. We're flexible. So this last one, I was just thinking, you know, now we've got a government going to other countries telling people, don't come here, you know, and you know, history's been repeating itself on that for a long time. So yeah, for the last one I chose Do Re Mi Rudy Guthrie, which just starts with the turnaround. Lots of folks that kiss they say, leaving home every day, beating the hot old dusty road to the California line. Across the desert sands they roll, getting out that old dust bowl. Think they're going to a sugar bowl, but here is what they find. Now police at port of entry say, your number 14,000 for today. If you ain't got the do re mi voice, you ain't got the do re mi. Why you better go back to beautiful Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Georgia, Tennessee. California is a garden of Eden, a paradise to live in or see. But believe it or not, you won't find it so hard if you ain't got the do re mi. If you wanna buy a home or farm that can't do nobody harm, take your vacation by mountains or the sea. Don't swap your old cow for a car. You better stay right where you are. Better take this little tip from me. 'Cause I look through on ads every day, but the headlines on the papers always say, if you ain't got the do re mi voice, you ain't got the do re mi. Why you better go back to beautiful Texas, go back. Oklahoma, Kansas, Georgia, Tennessee. California is a garden of Eden, a paradise to live in or see. But believe it or not, you won't find it so hard if you ain't got the do re mi. But believe it or not, you won't find it so hard if you ain't got the do re mi. Thank you very much. That was lovely. And we are going to follow this up with our lovely poet who's my poet laureate in my heart always, Nellie Wong. Thank you very much. Welcome, Nellie.
There we go. That was wonderful, and I'm glad to be here with everyone this afternoon and to be a part of this ongoing Labor Fest that we have here in our city. I'll be sharing some poems with you today, and I will start with We Eat Chicken Feet, and we are not dead. We eat chicken feet, and we are not dead. Our bowls are rimmed with bats and fireflies. Our feet pedal sewing machines, making blue jeans and gowns. We march in Chinatown, protesting discrimination. Coronavirus has no yellow skin nor brown eyes. We are delivery workers, doctors, dancers, actors. Our ancestors memorized the number of doors and windows in the home village, whether our fathers had more than one wife. Our foremothers sold their bodies to feed their children, of being cultivated wild and sweet cherries in Oregon. We make masks and we don't hide. We fight for Asian American studies, Chinglish, and unbridled song. Agitating for inclusion is a political act. We strike for higher wages, rest periods for our aching backs. We are immigrants working at home all over the world. We are natives born in Eureka, Augusta, Oakland, Phoenix, Flushing. We dispense herbs, make soup to heal our bodies, harvest chrysanthemums, grapes, pea shoots, winter melon. Oh yeah, we yakety yak, we jitterbug and jive, play flute and drums. We dream and we braise and steam and we write. We eat chicken feet and we are not dead. Webster Street Moon. Music of the lute and erhu wafts down Webster Street. The chair caner walks by, a pine chair hoisted on his back, unconcerned with the clacking of mahjong tiles, a woman's voice cascading out the window singing of separation from her love. Above the Silver Dragon Cafe, night's tendrils snare a young girl's ears, her baba drinking VO and playing pai gao, a respite from his day of buying bean sprouts, breast of lamb, ground beef, salt, flour, and granulated sugar, paying the cook's union dues, adding, subtracting, and dividing on his abacus. The Great China operated 6 days a week. Even on New Year's, cow's ear cookies and custard pies no longer fill the window of New Home Bakery. The girl anticipates aroma of cinnamon, Chinese apple pies wafting from ovens at 8 o'clock in the morning. Live chickens no longer squawk. No more duck feathers flying from the poultry monger's hands, the herbalist, barber, bookseller, noodle maker, and women buying winter melon, star anise, fresh pork, and oranges disappear into their homes. Night world moon lights up the girl's curiosity. Who is that woman in the cheongsam of sequin phoenix and peonies on the arms of an elegant man wearing a three-piece suit of gabardine, his fedora framing his handsome features? The girl watches him. Another time with another woman, older, his wife, walking into the insurance office that he manages. At the kitchen table, the girl breaks down the sentence: subject, predicate, verb, object, nominative, declarative, interrogative, imperative. No dangling participles, her teacher admonishes when she writes her composition. Sipping scorched rice soup, the girl thinks of diphthongs, saving for a new pair of Spalding saddle shoes, and how she'll sing of what she doesn't yet know. In this past year, 16 months or 17 months so of dealing with the pandemic and what's happened with so much of the racism against Asian Americans of many ethnicities. And this piece came out. Interiority, hey. Interiority, pungent and prickly wafts from the pot, stainless and gleaming. Brown rice kernels toast, relax in mellifluous heat. My legs entwine the kitchen bar stool, wrapping me in a haze of aluminum foil while sunlight pours through speck splash window. Soon do bu jj, bubbles in gochujang. Red, fiery, I feel audacious, adding meatless sausage balls, putting aside scallions, reserving spring for evening's repast. COVID-19 crisis inserts itself, irresistible, non-discriminating and worldly, when a Chinese woman on a train coughs and a white woman shouts, "Oh my God," shielding herself with her trench coat, sinking further into the plastic coated seat on the train, while other pairs of eyes shoot arrows of fear, panic. Whole bodies move, shrink en masse. Yellow woman pariah again and again. The exteriority of suspicion. Yellow alert splashes across headlines. Modern day yellow peril springs into consciousness. The president tweeting a foreign virus. What model minority? What passivity? What dragon lady? The blah of stereotypes. The Orient, the Occident, steal their labor and run. What invisibility, what lies. Yellow women excluded before onslaught of Chinese Exclusion Act. Yellow men killed at Rock Springs, murdered in Hawaii, not real and buff and masculine enough to grace the silver screen. Just really enough to mine for gold, build railroads, grow wine grapes, live in cramped quarters, fight the cubic air law, the right to attend public schools. Chalk it up to ignorance. Wholesale? No. Why COVID-19 is named, referring to its eruption in Wuhan, China. There they go, giving identity, racial and ethnic, to a virus, dressing it with epicanthic folds, dividing us, shelling us, tucking us into drawers, locking us in prisons with psychological bars. Oh, we work hard, we do. Bodies and minds in deliverance of materiality of mass, hazmat suits, lockdowns, and pangolins hunted for their meat and shells, bats for their medicinal use, their stewing, symbols of good luck. Go back to China, bitch. You don't belong here. But I was born here. These fingers know work. Filing memories, they know song. Yellow chrysanthemums, my Baba's love. They know arthritis, I never dreamt of. Playing paddleball, reaching typewriter keys. These fingers, the solidity of wood. Breathing fire, the body, an instrument of desire. These fingers changed a boss's dictation. creativity pushing his nose forward into his skull, this secretary unperturbed. These fingers pervade the brain, leaves and petals, soot and rain, when cursive grew bone. And I also want to read to you today a poem I wrote actually years ago. It's been about 7 or 8 years or more when the cops in Staten Island, New York, killed Eric Gardner. And then since then, I've grown the piece because so many more Black people have been killed by the police. Loose cigarettes for Eric Gardner, Oscar Grant Jr., and other Blacks killed by the cops. Selling loose cigarettes wouldn't have done it. Had I known I'd be tackled and choke held to death selling a few smokes for a few bucks, helping a brother who has a buck but not 6. Why my life? This big man with wife, daughter, and son, 350 pounds of me, 6 feet plus of me, heart and muscles working, my Blackness working against me on the street. The grand jury, what's grand about it? Letting the blue off, no Black officers in that killing crew. The blue could have cited me, could have paid a fine, could have worn a orange jumpsuit, cleaned the sidewalks, pulled weeds, cleared debris. Nothing but a Black life. Watching my own back, carrying groceries home. In my own hood, nothing but a Black life, taken as if a gift to the god of violence. Nothing but Black lives taken, looking like I got my hand in my waistband, looking like I'm happy celebrating New Year's Eve on BART with my friends. Okay, I lifted cigarillos from a store, held my hands up, don't shoot, I can't breathe. And the press telling press protesters to stay calm. Fast forward, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. 8 minutes to snuff me out. The police union head urges us to stay calm. Same script, nothing's changed. Justice. Can't demand it from where I've gone. Show me the next time I'm selling loose cigarettes. The next time I'm celebrating New Year's Eve. The next time I'm stopped in a public park. The next time I'm jogging in a white neighborhood. The next time our Black lives walk, run, and drive and sleep the streets of America.
Yay. Feel free to unmute to signal your
I have
appreciation.
one more,
Oh,
and it's very
sorry.
short. It's taken from, you know how when you read the newspaper and they have little short pieces in very, very concentrated form. And I spotted this headline that said, South Carolina firing squad is now a choice. And that appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle on March the 3rd, 2021. Nothing like freedom. Such luck, inmates. Protocol now flies behind bars of steel spaghetti. You can now decide, you have a say. But tossing dice in midair, banquet of steak or fish. Dots don't count, though dice may land on electric chair. Please sit down. No? Firing squad then. Sorry, lethal injections slip away. Golden goose strangles its own neck. Still, you have a choice. Sizzle or bang. Thank you.
Yay. Yeah.
So usually it doesn't take me. I've heard her before.
The next reader is Jerry Path.
Thank you, Nellie. That was really moving. Thank you. My piece is titled Suicidal Squeeze. It is clear that something unprecedented in modern history is taking place on our planet. On June 28th this year, there was a record high of 118 degrees Fahrenheit in Portland, Oregon. There were similar record-setting temperatures throughout the Pacific Northwest. And in Siberia, there was a record heat wave with a record high of 118 degrees. This means that the permafrost has been melting rapidly. Roads are buckling and structures built on once solid land have been sinking. But most alarming is that methane gas, 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide, is creating the greenhouse effect, is bubbling up from the thawing land and the ocean floor. In China, according to the July-August issue of Monthly Review magazine, there was a blue sun over Beijing. Quote, from March 14 to 27, 2021, there was a severe sandstorm that started in the eastern Gobi Desert Steppe, swept across the Mongolian Plateau south, the Laos Plateau, the North China Plain, and the Korean Peninsula. Beijing and 12 provinces in China were hit by the worst sandstorm in a decade. On March 15, a blue sun appeared as the red rays were absorbed by the sandstorm particles. Desertification, global warming, and foreign-controlled mining giants are the interrelated factors behind these sandstorms. And there have been many other disasters around the globe. Just this past week, there have been record-setting floods in Europe and China. There have also been illnesses not usually recognized as an environmental problem, such as AIDS, Ebola, COVID-19, and cancer. It is clear that the struggle against COVID-19 is just beginning. Millions in poorer nations and even within richer nations remain unvaccinated. The likely cause of COVID-19 and other viruses, our ever increasing encroachment on nature, goes unacknowledged. Likewise, the struggle against cancer has gone on for decades with little note of likely causes, pollution, and radiation. Given the catastrophic nature of these problems, why have not our ruling classes, in the words of Greta Thunberg, been, quote, merely playing politics with people's lives, pretending to take responsibility, close quote. The historical evidence makes it clear that the US ruling class is blinded by its overwhelming economic and military power, seeking to maintain world hegemony. Our ruling class wants to ensure that we are number one. But number one in what? In reality, we are number one in destructive and wasteful production. As is common knowledge, we have enough nuclear bombs to destroy the world many times over. We have over 1,000 military bases encircling the globe, ensuring that subordinate and poorer nations stay in their place, ensuring that we can continue to exploit their labor. In their 1972 trip to China, Nixon and Kissinger, who wished to take advantage of its rift with the Soviet Union, They were also salivating over its huge potential labor and consumer markets. In other words, the prospect of a huge pool of cheap labor. It took a few years of negotiations, but ever since this cheap labor has become a reality, there has been an ever more intensive race to the bottom, to the common ruin of the global working class. Quoting again from Monthly Review, May 2021, in an article by Chinese scholars, quote, "The United States is the world's largest parasitic and decaying country. As evidence of this, we may take the trade between China and the United States. China sells to the United States goods produced by cheap labor, land, and environmental resources. The United States does not need to produce anything in order to buy these goods. It can simply print banknotes. With the money earned, China can then buy only virtual assets such as US Treasury bonds and provide finance for US consumer lending and outward expansion. The United States exports to China securities to which value cannot be added, while China exports to the United States mainly physical goods and labor services." End quote. I do not pretend to understand how all these financial mechanisms work, but one thing is clear. The richer nations are using the power of capital over labor to maintain their place of privilege, focusing on this instead of focusing on a catastrophic problem of human survival. It is necessary for labor to break the chains of capital, the relations of domination and subordination in all their forms: class, racism, sexism, and imperialist nationalism. It is necessary to go on the offensive, working not merely for a higher wage and better conditions, but working towards the control of the means of life. And the uprising has already begun. It has been going on for decades, and the military, political, and social economic might of the richer nations have crushed the poorer nations and the subordinate peoples within the richer nations. But millions of people keep rising up. Humanity urgently needs a new system beyond capital to confront ecological catastrophe. To accomplish this, humanity needs to develop cooperation and real equality between nations and peoples. This is a task before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
And now Alice, I believe, will take questions.
Now we're going to have either questions or discussion. If anyone has any of those, you could raise your hand or put a question in the chat. I'm not sure I see anybody. Let's see. I think Richard Tan might have something he'd like to say. I think we're going to stop recording now also.